Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to go over what I think is one of the most underrated gold farms in World of Warcraft. And this farm actually has nothing to do with anything in the new expansion. This farm is actually from the Battle for Azeroth expansion, and I think this is another reason why this farm is so good right now, because a lot of people aren't doing it. And this is going to be a farm built around selling transmog items, so keep that in mind before you go and do this. Selling transmog items for gold works quite a lot differently than other gold farms because they generally sell a lot slower than pretty much anything else. They are still realm specific, so they're not like resources that are region wide, but these items could potentially sell for hundreds of thousands of gold a piece. And transmog are heavily dependent on your specific server, and the general rule for this being that higher population servers are going to sell transmog items much more quickly, but they're going to be worth a lot less, and on low population servers they're going to sell for quite a lot more, but it could potentially take months to sell specific transmog items. So keep all that in mind. Transmog is not something you're going to do. You're going to go farm this for an hour and make hundreds of thousands of gold because you sell everything. It could potentially take months to sell out a ton of transmog items. And this farm is going to revolve around the island expedition system, and if you've never done this, it's pretty simple. It's just a queued up activity where you're essentially fighting against another team of AI to gather a certain amount of score on this island. First one who reaches the amount of score you're going for wins that match. You can do it in PvP as well, but when you're gold farming with this, you're going to be solo doing it against a team of AI. Anything you do on the island is going to give you this score, but the best way to go about farming this at the level we're at and the power we're at is just to run around, gather up all of the enemies on the island you can, AoE them all down, and that's going to be the best and quickest way to go about doing this farm. And I'm going to be working out a video that goes much more in depth on this farm, how to min-max it, the best way to go about doing it, and how to make the most amount of gold while doing it. So this one's going to be a little bit more of an overview of how to do it, especially if you're a newer player. I know Dragonflight has brought back a lot of older players and brought in a lot of newer players, so a lot of people may not know about this system and this farm. But these island expeditions can reward a lot of transmog items. So first off, every match you do, you're going to get 1 to 3 of these bags that give you a currency called Seafarer's Doubloons. And then you're also going to randomly be getting cosmetic items at the end of each match. You can get pets you can sell, you can get BOE armor pieces to sell, and you can get BOE weapons to sell. You can also get mounts, but those are all bind on pickup. But the reason these cosmetics can make you so much gold is because of, first off, how many there are, and there's also just a lot of unique appearances. So there's dozens and dozens of unique BOE weapons that can be sold that are all or most of them unique appearances. Some of them really cool looking appearances. And then there are dozens of full cosmetic armor sets that are either recolors of old tier sets or just fully unique armor sets. But you're getting these armor pieces one piece at a time. So you're not getting a drop that's a full armor set. You would get like a helm that you could sell or gloves that you could sell. And between the weapons and armor, there are legitimately hundreds of different BOE items from these island expeditions. And like mentioned, you can get these from drops at the end of each one of these runs, but there's also a vendor that for the Seafarer Doubloons sells a rotating inventory of different chests. Now these different chests all have their own specific drop. So one of the chests may have a handful of the different sets it can drop of armor pieces, and then a handful of weapons and a few pets, and then another chest would drop a bunch of different armor pieces and different weapons. It's essentially a way to try to target farm specific cosmetic pieces through the chest instead of just randomly getting them at the end of the runs. And just past the sheer amounts of cosmetic and transmog items that drop from these island expeditions, there are some that are just very cool and very sought after that can sell for ridiculous amounts of gold. So first off, we have the Plundered Blade of the Northern Kings. This is a big, unique looking two-handed weapon that looks really cool, so a lot of two-handed users want to have this sword. And I have personally made millions of gold off of this specific sword since BFA has been released. This is probably the quickest selling item from the island expeditions. They've dropped quite a lot in price, but the US average is still right around 120,000 gold, so still can make quite a lot of gold off that. Then you have stuff like the Dusk Haven top hat, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a top hat, but it's pretty rare and it's super sought after for a lot of people that make much more unique transmog appearances and the US average price of this is still over 320,000 gold. So some of these items you could legitimately be making multiple tokens worth of gold just by selling one item. But keep in mind, a lot of these big ticket items aren't going to be selling super frequently. They'll probably take a month or a couple months to sell just because they're a more niche item, and 320,000 gold for one cosmetic piece is quite a lot. And that's pretty much the entirety of this farm. And I am going to be doing a video that goes much more in depth on, like I mentioned, how you can optimize this much more, some of the tips you can do to this farm, and just how to be much more efficient with doing this farm. But any level 70 character can go do this farm and do it solo and do it very easily. And how you're going to want to do this farm is you're going to want to go to whatever is your main city in Battle for Azeroth, and it should show you on your map where the Island Expedition table is, and there should be an NPC behind that table that if you talk to, you can solo queue for all of the difficulties of Island Expeditions. Do Mythic difficulty, that's going to give you a lot more loot, and since you're level 70, no matter how geared you are, it's going to be very easy for you to solo this. I also recommend using a tank for doing any of these farms, and do an AoE focused build because you're primarily going to be running around picking up all the groups of enemies and AoEing them down. That's the best way to do these farms as quickly as possible. And also, there is some pretty big issues with phasing at this area. So a lot of the times, depending on what quests you've done in BFA, the NPC that you want to talk to solo queue won't be there. But there is a weekly quest for Island Expeditions, so if you can't get that NPC to spawn behind the table, what you're going to do is just queue up for Island Expeditions, and it's going to want you to do, I think, 4 Island Expeditions for that weekly to be completed. So just do that. It may take a little bit to get the queues, but once you've completed that weekly, the NPC will spawn there because that's where you turned it in, and then that's all you need to do. And that weekly turn-in will always be there from now on, and the NPC will always be there as well. I've had that same issue where I couldn't get the NPC to spawn, so I just complete that weekly once, never turn it in, and the NPC will always be there so you can solo queue from talking to him. But that's pretty much all I want to go over for this farm. This is personally one of my favorite farms still. I've legitimately made over 1 million gold just from selling these items that I had built up from doing some of them in Shadowlands. I haven't done any Island Expeditions until the past couple days, and I legitimately have made over 1 million gold in Dragonflight just from keeping those items up on the auction house. So it's still incredibly lucrative. It's easier to do now, and it's a very good way to build up a stock of Transmog items to keep on the auction house. But that's pretty much all I want to go over. So subscribe if you want to see more World of Warcraft or other MMO videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about this Island Expedition farm, and thanks for watching.